it, Benita.
I'm sorry.
You are standing in front of the Spirit of Freedom monument to the lost story of the real reason that slavery ended in 1863. And no disrespect to Abraham Lincoln, really. I'm not trying to beat up on, poor Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. The father of our country owned 237 slaves. I'm not beating up on him. The guy who wrote the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, raped his slave servant over and over and took her to France with him and raped her every night in France. I'm not beating up on him. I'm not beating up on Abraham Lincoln, who said, if I can end this war without freeing the slaves, I will. I'm really not. Honest to goodness, I really respect these gentlemen. But it's not my interpretation of why slavery ended in 1863. It's because of these guys here, who by 1862 were running away from their masters in the South and were sabotaging the Confederate Army's food and horses and their weapons, and were blowing up their ammo dumps. These are slaves, are poisoning the horses of the Confederate Army. This is before they're ever recruited into the Army and given a gun, and given a blue uniform with brass buttons right here, and the U.S. on. This is way before all of that. They're helping to end the war, because they know that if the Confederacy is destroyed, slavery will end, one way or the other. And so finally in 1862, which you're going to learn a little bit better when we go to the museum, the United States was losing the war in 1862. And Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman and a bunch of good white guys like Henry William Seward, who lived at Foggy Bottom, who lived in the house where our police department is today, at the corner of 21st and G. The police department? Henry William Seward lived there, and he was the top advisor to Abraham Lincoln, and he was a radical abolitionist. And he kept telling Lincoln, you got to recruit the blacks. You got to recruit the blacks. If you don't recruit the blacks, we're going to lose this war. And he was sitting right there with Lincoln, and you'll see the picture a little bit later when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. And when Lincoln was shot in the back of the head, Henry William Seward was upstairs in his bedroom trying to go to sleep, and they stabbed him that night too. It didn't kill him, but they stabbed him. He was number 3 on the assassination plot of Lincoln. Why? Because he was anti-slavery. Yes.
Are they turning that into a museum now?
Yes, we're turning it into a DC museum, and yes, that's coming. The police department's going to move over to the academic center. But by 1862, Lincoln finally got the message that he needed to bring in the black soldiers. And actually, what's happening now in this period of time is that slave masters are selling their slaves for $300 a piece to the Union Army anyway, because they realize that slavery is on its deathbed. And so my guys that I did my dissertation on in Unionville, Maryland, the 18 slaves there, they were sold into the Union Army by their master for $300. So the master gets $300 per slave. Pretty good deal.
How much is $300?
$300 is a lot of money today.
I mean, like today, what would it be? $5,000?
No, much more than that. It would be $20,000, $30,000. It would be a lot of money today. Wow. $300. But anyway, 209,145 of them fought. 38,000 of these men died. 26 of these men won the Congressional Medal of Honor. Every one of their names are right there on the wall. Every single name right there.
Wow.
Every name. I didn't dismiss you yet. Every single name is on that wall. And before we leave here, I want you to look up your name. They're in alphabetical order by regiment. And I guarantee you that you will find your name on that wall somewhere. You have ancestors who actually fought in this war. And speaking of ancestors, And speaking of that concept of African spirituality, do you know where she is here? Do you know where the ancestor is here? Where is she? See the face? See her? She clearly is of African descent and features. Who was she? And this is called the spirit of freedom. This is the spirit of freedom. Those words are not accidental. Ed Hamilton, the sculptor, just didn't make up those words. The spirit of freedom. Who was she?
Was it based on a real person?
It's a composite. It could have been one of those women who was on the middle passage on the slave ship, who got her hour on deck with her child, and she was confronting the 6-week trip from Africa to the Caribbean as a slave, and she was being raped periodically by the slavers on the ship, and she gets her hour of exercise up the top of the deck, and she's holding her child in her bosom, and she's naked, and she's being force-fed, and she has to defecate on herself while she is chained to the floor, and then she's standing by the side of the ship, and she decides to jump over and join the sharks who are following the slave ship, because the sharks knew that they threw dead slaves over on the slave passage, and so she is joining her ancestors. Because in her world in West Africa, when she dies, Andre, she doesn't die, she joins her family. And so she's the spirit. She's the spirit of freedom. And it could have been the 38,000 who died, and it could have been the 2 civil rights workers who were murdered on the trip from Selma to Montgomery. It could have been the 3 civil rights workers murdered in Philadelphia. It's our ancestors, not just your ancestors, it's mine too, because we're all Americans. So this is the spirit of freedom, and she's one of the ancestors. And clearly she has her hands crossing over her chest. And clearly she is in a mode of remembering you, and you need to remember her. And that's why this is called the spirit of freedom. And as we leave this place, I want you to